Most dancing prior to Graham had to do with lyricism. It had to do with storytelling in a certain very narrative way. Graham changed the vocabulary totally, and to watch this was astonishing. I had to see it 2, 3, 4 times before I could sort it out. All I knew is that it enveloped me. I was terribly impressed. But when I kept seeing it, I then began to see how innovative she really was and how many things she used that were part of the dance vocabulary, but she used them differently.
Her importance was beginning to emerge. As she became more popular and people began to take it very seriously, and began to see what she was and who she was and what she had done and where she had come from and where she went. So that by that time, there was a lot of interest in her. It's still sort of sub rosa, but it was all coming to the surface, certainly in the dance world. There was no question about that.
It's a very peculiar thing that so little had been shot prior to these films. There was some study films that were shot with Graham and her company, some that she wanted, I think, to use for her own purposes, but not in the sense of film that, would be shown to an audience. And I have no idea why. And Nathan had this absolutely important idea to put her on record forever and ever. He had worked on the West Coast, and so he knew his way around in the world of film as a producer. Nathan had a lot of experience with music, and when he came here and decided to do these absolutely unique and superb projects, they suited his taste, his interest, and his expertise. I had an absolutely marvelous friend named Peter Glushanek, a Russian cameraman. I worked with him on location in the city, and it was through him that started the editing obsession. I'd renewed an acquaintance with a very, very wonderful, wonderful filmmaker, a man named Alexander Hammond, who did a lot of work with Nathan. And Asasha introduced me to Nathan, and the first film we did together was the Graham film.
Some of my friends, like Mimi Yarsham and Peter Glushanek, who were involved in all this, were my close friends, and decided that they would give me a background in film, which they did. And I went out and sold myself, and it worked.
Curiously enough, it was one of the few areas where women were accepted because, every time I think about this, women supposedly were more intuitive, and so they were good for editing.
You have to translate this reality to the screen, which is a flat medium. And so there's a question of how you change it. I remember Dancer's World as being one of the first real document of a work of hers.
The dancer is realistic. His craft teaches him to be. Either the foot is pointed or it is not. No amount of dreaming will point it for you. This requires discipline, not drill. Not something imposed from without, but discipline imposed by you yourself, upon yourself.
What it was a lecture. It was a lecture demonstration she used to give to an audience, and they wanted to record it. I went down with Peter while he was looking at it and studying it, made notes of what he was going to do, and kept a record of long shot, close up, this, that, the other thing. Peter and Martha Graham were sort of getting to know each other. And she was very, very helpful. I remember her getting on the floor down to look at the camera because he wanted something different. And sure, there she was. But the end was supposed to be her on camera. Couldn't get her down. She wouldn't come down. She wasn't going to do it. They finally dragged her down. She walked down. She sat with her hands at the banister, at the bar, dancer's bar, and started to talk. For Martha Graham, it was a nightmare. She did not want to go with being just a teacher. She wanted to be presented as a performer, too. And so they went to trying to hunt up some money to reshoot just that one scene. So we see her getting dressed for the performance.
The privilege of the instant. But he says, you have so little time to be born to the instant.
And she goes out and she performs, which then made her happier. Sort of more dramatic in a way than just the way we had it before. For Dancer's World, the music is the music that the pianist plays when they rehearse. And so he made up the music for these particular shots that were being recorded. Then, after that, they gave me back footage without music. That gave me free way to do whatever I wanted with it and to structure it. You get to know the footage, and it's like, I don't know, it's hard to describe, it's hard to teach students this also, what it is that about rhythm. You begin to sing inside in relation to the shots and how long they run and what have you, and they begin to determine lengths. And then afterwards, you put them together, you're not satisfied, you want them shorter, you want them longer, you begin to change them a little bit. But it's out of a certain inner sense of rhythm that you're working with, that the film is activating. After I cut it, we gave it to the pianist, he studied it, and played back to it as it ran. We had to put it back now very carefully in time with the cuts, the music as it was arranged by me, rearranged by me in a way. He has to now rearrange his music. While when it comes to Appalachian Spring, nobody's rearranging anything. We are doing exactly what was recorded. Because it's written music. You gotta stay with it, its lengths, its dynamics, its what have you. We shot this stuff, it was great fun, I loved it. And brought it to the cutting room, and I'm syncing it up. And I'm getting cold, hot and cold. It's not in sync. Somebody had forgot to lock the tape to the camera, and they were running off at their own speed. First thing we do is the musician and I sit down for about a week and try to pick out what we think of the takes would be the best and the easiest to deal with. I discovered that you would find a piece to deal with, and it worked very, very well, but it went off there. So I had to find a way to connect to the one coming in where I didn't need the piece that was out of sync. So it's like judging for in-sync sections, finding them, and then connecting them. We only had 2 dissolves in it, fortunately in good places, because I couldn't do anything, because it was running off by the yard at that point. I still think sometimes maybe the dancers walk in and feel it's out of sync, but I'm not sure.
The real issue that came up in Night Journey was continuity. Because, of course, the dance was not shot from start to finish. It's a stage performance initially. And so how you center your material is a very clear design that you have as choreographer. But when you film it, you're not going to stick a camera in the front of the thing and just grind away. So the issue comes up, where do you put the camera? When do you have a close-up? When do you have a medium shot, et cetera, et cetera? Since it was set to a piece of music, an already recorded piece of music, it made for different kind of cutting. Because dancers always make tiny adjustments on stage. They're not machines, they cannot work as absolutely regularly as a rhythm demands. I couldn't cut always where I wanted to cut. So I had to make all sorts of compromises. And I must say, these were discussed with Nathan very meticulously, but also with Graham. One day, Martha's manager, Lee Leatherman, could not come to the cutting room, so Martha came herself. As it happened, it was a very, very tiny room on West 54th Street. And at that time, we used the upright moviolas. And the visual was seen through a sort of a 3x4 frame. Tiny, tiny, tiny. She looked at it, and she couldn't really verbalize. And so she got down on the cutting room floor and did that part of the dance. And so we were able to see. But then as my claim, I had Martha Graham on the cutting room floor.
First time I showed a completed film to Martha, we talked, didn't talk, waited till she got done. When she was over, I said, what did you think? I mean, good, bad, what? She looked at me, and she's not very short, very tall. Drew herself up and looked at me and said, I have faced death before. And I thought to myself, should I laugh or cry? Because it was something very painful to her. Exactly what it was, I didn't know. Whether it was seeing herself on film or seeing herself, I don't know. But for some reason or other, it sort of hit her someplace. The other dancers were so young and moved in certain ways. And she had a sort of earthbound movement. You never saw her leap. She sort of stayed rooted to the ground in what she composed for herself. So that gave her a quality of stability and of weight.
By pure chance, we screened Night Journey for her in a big theater in New York. And I sat behind her, just accidentally. And I watched her move her body throughout the film. She just re-danced the whole dance while she was watching it. It was great. If Nathan, as a producer, had not made these films, we would miss something not only important, but beautiful, and something that's terribly, terribly rich.